My name is Sarah Langley. I'm 42 years old. I've been a middle school English teacher for almost 2 decades. I live in a quiet little suburb in Connecticut with my 15-year-old daughter, Emily, and until 6 months ago, my life was simple, predictable, even boring. But that was before a single cough turned everything upside down. It started so small. Just a dry cough. No fever, no chills, no congestion. Just this stubborn little itch in my throat that refused to go away. I figured it was allergies or maybe just exhaustion. Teaching takes a toll, especially when you're juggling parent-teacher conferences, grading essays at 1 a.m., and trying to raise a teenager on your own. At first, I didn't even think to mention it to anyone. But then the fatigue hit. Not the kind you shake off with coffee and a nap. This was something else, deep, aching, like my body was wading through concrete. I'd come home from school and fall asleep still in my work clothes, my lesson plans forgotten on the kitchen counter. Emily would find me like that, and I'd fake a smile, tell her I was just getting old. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. So, I made an appointment with Dr. Nathan Collier, my primary care doctor, the man who had been looking after me and Emily for years. He delivered Emily. He treated my strep throat every winter. He knew my health history better than anyone, and I trusted him like family. When I walked into his office that Thursday afternoon, I expected to leave with a prescription for vitamins or maybe a referral to an allergist. Instead, he listened quietly as I described my symptoms, nodded thoughtfully, and ordered a full-body scan, just to be safe. I remember thinking, God, he's thorough. That's why I like him. That was the last normal day of my life. A week later, I was back in his office, sitting on that same beige chair, my hands sweating against my jeans. The room smelled like lemon disinfectant and old paper. Dr. Collier came in with a manila folder and a tight smile that didn't reach his eyes. He didn't look at me right away. He sat down, opened the folder, and then, in the softest voice imaginable, said, "Sarah. I'm really sorry. The scan shows lymphoma. Stage 3B. I didn't breathe. I couldn't." The word lymphoma echoed in my skull like a gunshot. I stared at him, blinking, waiting for him to laugh, to say he was kidding. He didn't. He just kept talking, words like aggressive but treatable, chemo, radiation, survival rates. I couldn't hear any of it. I left the office in a daze, clutching a folder of pamphlets I never opened. I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried until the sun went down. Then I drove home, made dinner like a robot, and kissed Emily goodnight like everything was fine. I didn't tell her. Not that night. Not yet. I started chemo the next week. It all moved so fast, too fast to question. Dr. Collier referred me to an outpatient center just 30 minutes away. They were warm, efficient, almost too polished. They had me sign dozens of insurance forms. Everything was covered, they said. You're lucky, they said. Lucky. The first treatment hit me like a freight train. My bones hurt. My hair started falling out by the handful. I couldn't keep food down. I cried in the shower so Emily wouldn't hear. She was already too scared, watching her mom wither in front of her eyes. She shaved her head with me in solidarity. God, I love that girl. I started keeping a video journal. Not for me. For her. In case I didn't make it. Day 3 of chemo. I feel like I'm disappearing. But I smiled today. Emily needs to see that. I'm terrified, but I'm trying. Tara, my best friend, my rock, checked in every day. Brought soup. Drove me to appointments when I was too weak to drive myself. But it didn't take long before I noticed a look in her eyes, something I didn't recognize at first. Worry, sure. But more than that, doubt. One night, while folding laundry on my couch, she finally said it. Sarah. I know this is going to sound crazy. But didn't you say Mrs. Danvers got diagnosed with lymphoma last month? And she sees Dr. Collier too. And, wasn't there someone else in your building? That science teacher. I shrugged. It's probably just a coincidence. But later, lying in bed, the thought wouldn't leave me alone. A few weeks later, I passed out in the kitchen. Emily found me on the floor and called 911. I don't remember much, just waking up in the ER, hooked up to fluids. The attending doctor flipped through my chart with a furrowed brow. You're undergoing chemo? He asked, not unkindly. I nodded, my voice hoarse. Stage 3B lymphoma. He looked confused. Your white cell count isn't showing any of the usual markers. And your CT scans from this hospital, there's no lymphatic inflammation. I stared at him, heart pounding. I get my scans at a different clinic. Through Dr. Collier. He frowned but said nothing more. That night, alone in the hospital bed, I opened my patient portal on my phone. I tried to pull up my scan records, but the files were missing. No images. Just dates and billing codes. Lots and lots of billing codes. My chest tightened. I confronted Dr. Collier the next day. He smiled, calm as ever. Told me it was a mistake. Said the hospital just didn't have access to the full file set. That everything was normal. That I should focus on healing. He even patted my hand. But the seed had been planted. And once you see the crack in the glass, you can't unsee it. Tara started digging. Quietly. Carefully. And what she found chilled me to the bone. 3 other women. All diagnosed by Dr. Collier in the last 6 months. All treated at the same center. All had insurance plans like mine, robust, full coverage. And not one of them had access to their full medical records. We were a pattern. We were a business model. I wanted to scream. But instead, I just whispered. What if I never had cancer at all? Because suddenly, I wasn't sure anymore. Not at all. I should have stopped. I should have slammed the brakes, demanded answers, dragged my file to another doctor, another hospital, another state if I had to. But I didn't. Because even when your gut is screaming, something's wrong, it's hard to walk away from the only person telling you you're going to live. That's what Dr. Collier did best, he gave me hope. That steady voice, that warm smile, the gentle way he'd say, Sarah, you're doing so well. You're strong. You're going to beat this. I wanted to believe it. God help me, I needed to. So I stayed in treatment. The center he referred me to looked more like a luxury spa than a cancer clinic. Smooth jazz in the lobby. Complimentary tea and lemon water. Heated blankets during infusions. And nurses who smiled too perfectly, who never made eye contact when I asked the wrong questions. The chemo sessions were brutal. Every week, I'd lose a little more of myself. My hair was gone by month 2. My nails turned brittle, yellow. My skin bruised like fruit. I started missing work completely. I couldn't teach. I couldn't even read books anymore. My brain was foggy, like someone had stuffed cotton into every corner of my mind. Emily tried so hard to stay strong. She cooked dinner most nights, boxed mac and cheese, grilled cheese, anything simple. She left notes on my nightstand, I love you, Mom. You've got this. But I could see the fear in her eyes. The way she flinched when I coughed. The way she kept checking if I was still breathing while I napped. And the bills, God, the bills. They were covered, mostly, but the statements still came. Long, cold breakdowns of every scan, every drip of fluid, every oncology consultation. $8,700. $13,250. $21,600. I stopped opening them after a while. Tara didn't. She came over one Sunday with a manila folder, her face pale and serious. "I need to show you something," she said. "And I need you to not freak out." Inside the folder were printouts, copies of billing statements from her cousin, another former patient of Dr. Collier. Diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Also referred to the same center. The numbers were almost identical to mine. Same treatment codes. Same inflated fees. Same mystery oncologist signatures, one in particular, Drive E. Halvorsen. I'd never met a Dr. Halvorsen. Neither had Tara's cousin. And when Tara searched the state's medical licensing board, there was no Drive E. Halvorsen listed anywhere. I felt like I was watching my life unravel from the outside, like I was a character in some bad made-for-TV thriller. Except it wasn't fiction. This was my body. My bank account. My child's peace of mind. Still, I wasn't ready to believe it. Not yet. I needed something concrete. Something real. So I asked the clinic for a second opinion referral. Told them I wanted a new oncologist. Fresh eyes. They said no. Flat out no. "You're mid-treatment," they said. Switching doctors could complicate things. And besides, Dr. Halvorsen is one of the best in the state. I asked to meet him. I wanted to shake his hand, look him in the eye. They said he was off-site today. Every time I asked, same answer. I never saw him. The turning point came 2 weeks later. It was a Tuesday. Rainy. Emily had just left for school when I got a call from the clinic, one of the nurses. Her voice was shaky. "Hi, Mrs. Langley. Listen, I shouldn't be saying this. But I saw your chart. And there's something wrong with it." "What do you mean?" I asked, my throat tightening. She hesitated. "Your biopsy results. They're missing. Like, they were never uploaded. Just billing notes." I asked her to repeat herself. I needed to hear it again. She hung up instead. Just like that. I went to the clinic in person. I demanded my full medical records. They gave me a folder, neatly printed, clipped together, sanitized. No scan images. No pathology reports. Just summary sheets and invoices. Tara came with me. She sat in the car while I stared at the pages. She looked at me and whispered, "This isn't real, is it?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. We started digging. We found 3 other patients, through whispers, forums, vague Reddit threads. All women. All single. All with private insurance. One of them, Jenna, agreed to meet. We sat in a coffee shop, 2 strangers who shouldn't have anything in common, except we did. She showed me her scars. Her treatment log. Her confusion. I asked for my tumor biopsy, she told me, stirring her coffee. They said it was stored off-site. Never got it. I switched doctors after 6 months. Guess what? My new oncologist said there's no trace of cancer in my scans. I felt sick. Like I'd been poisoned, not by chemo, but by trust. That night, I called the insurance company. I asked to speak to someone in claims fraud. "Hi. My name is Sarah Langley. I think my doctor might have lied about my cancer diagnosis." There was a pause. Then the man on the other end said, You're not the first person to call us about Dr. Collier. I hung up and stared at the phone. Tara sat beside me in silence. Emily was in her room, earbuds in, listening to some indie playlist she loved. She had no idea that the life we were fighting so hard to save may never have needed saving. I looked at my reflection in the hallway mirror, gaunt, bald, ghost-like. And I whispered to myself, if I was never sick, then what the hell have they done to me? You never think you'll become the kind of person who doubts a doctor. But when your life starts cracking open and every answer leads to another question, doubt stops being a choice, it becomes survival. After the call from that nurse, after she told me there were no biopsy results in my file and then disappeared into silence, I couldn't sit still anymore. I needed the truth. No more theories. No more whispers. I needed something I could hold in my hands. The next day, I went back to the clinic. I didn't call ahead. I didn't bring Emily or Tara. I wore a hoodie and jeans and looked like any other tired mom showing up for a checkup. But I wasn't there for treatment. I was there to find that nurse, the one who'd called me. I didn't know her name. But I remembered her voice. Soft, nervous, almost apologetic. At the reception desk, I asked casually, "Is Monica here today?" She's the one who usually checks me in for chemo. There was no Monica. Strike one. So I waited. I pretended to fill out paperwork. Pretended to read an outdated Better Homes and Gardens. Pretended not to notice the staff whispering behind the glass partition. Eventually, a woman walked by, young, brown ponytail, sneakers squeaking against the tile. Her eyes met mine for a half second and, there it was. Recognition. Fear. She looked away too fast. I followed. I caught up with her by the vending machines, heart pounding so hard I thought I might throw up. "Hey," I said softly. "You called me yesterday." "I know it was you." She froze. "I'm not angry," I added quickly. I need to understand." She looked around, scanning for cameras or anyone listening. Then she leaned in and whispered. "Your file is red flagged. A warning pops up when anyone tries to access it." "What kind of warning?" She hesitated. "It says, do not share pathology with patient. File sensitive. MD override only. I've only ever seen that once before, and that patient died." My stomach dropped. "Why?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why would they block my file?" She shook her head. "I don't know. But there's no biopsy result in your chart. Not a single one. Just treatment codes. Billing. Notes from Dr. Collier." I tried to breathe. She stepped back. "Please don't say I told you. If they find out, I'll lose everything." And just like that, she walked away. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the shadows from the hallway nightlight flickering across the walls like ghosts. I felt hollow. Not sick, not tired, just emptied out. Emily came in at one point. She sat on the edge of the bed, touched my arm. "You okay, Mom?" I nodded. But I wasn't. I wasn't okay. I was unraveling. And I knew I needed help. The next morning, I called my father's old lawyer. Linda Chu. She'd handled his estate when he passed. Sharp. No nonsense. Not the warmest person, but honest. I told her everything, every detail from the first cough to the last chemotherapy drip. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, there was silence on the other end of the line. Then she said, "I want you to request your medical records again." But this time, we're doing it formally. With a legal subpoena. I felt my chest tighten. You really think they're hiding something? I think, she said slowly, you've been used. And if we're right, we're not just talking malpractice, we're talking felony fraud. We filed the paperwork the same week. The clinic had 10 days to respond. While we waited, Linda reached out to her contacts in medical regulation. Tara reached out to an old friend who worked in insurance. And I started looking at my own files with a microscope. I dug through every bill. Every treatment summary. Every scanned report. That's when I saw it, something I'd overlooked before. 2 CT scans dated a week apart. Same machine. Same provider. Same technician code. But when I pulled them up side by side, the images were identical. Not similar. Identical. Every pixel. Every shadow. Every marker. It was a copy. They'd sent the same scan twice and labeled it as a progressing tumor activity. My stomach turned. Linda brought in a private investigator, a man named James Hart. Former NYPD fraud unit. The kind of man who didn't smile unless he meant it. He reviewed the files I gave him, and the first thing he asked was, do you have a physical copy of your original diagnosis? I shook my head. Dr. Collier always said it was digital only. James narrowed his eyes. That's not how cancer diagnoses work. There should be a pathology report. A signed biopsy analysis. Consent forms for treatment. We had none of it. He looked at me, serious. Ms. Langley, I think this was premeditated. Tara started interviewing other patients. Carefully. Quietly. Jenna gave her a list of women she'd found through an online support group, all of them diagnosed with similar cancers, all referred by Dr. Collier, all billed through the same partner clinic. 2 of them had already filed insurance complaints. 1 had gotten a cease and desist letter. It was bigger than we thought. The clinic responded on day 9. They sent over a flash drive with PDFs of my entire file. It was supposed to be complete. It wasn't. Still no biopsy report. No raw scans. No third-party analysis. Just summaries. Summaries written by Dr. Collier. Linda looked through the files and muttered, he's writing his own proof. Then she called the state medical board. And that's when everything began to shift. That same week, the nurse who had whispered to me at the vending machine, quit. Vanished. No social media. No contact number. Just gone. I don't know if she ran, or if someone made her disappear. But I was done being afraid. I made an appointment with a new oncologist across town. Paid out of pocket. No referrals. No insurance records. I told him I wanted everything redone, blood work, imaging, full diagnostic workup. He looked confused, but agreed. When the results came in 2 weeks later, he sat me down in a quiet office, shut the door, and said words I will never forget. Ms. Langley, there's no sign you've ever had cancer. My mouth went dry. What? Your lymph nodes are clear. Your blood panels are normal. There's no scarring, no mass, no markers of treatment. But I've had 6 months of chemo. He looked at me with a sadness I didn't understand until much later. I don't think you did. When someone tells you that you never had cancer, you'd think you'd feel relieved. But I didn't. I felt violated. Not just betrayed, used. My body, my fear, my child's pain, it had all been a transaction. And someone had cashed in. I left the oncologist's office with shaking hands, clutching my clean results like they were a stranger's. I sat in my car, turned off the engine, and stared out the windshield for what felt like hours. Then I called Linda. "He lied," I said. "Dr. Collier lied about everything." She didn't sound surprised. "Good. Now we can go to war." James, the investigator, got to work fast. He subpoenaed records from the insurance companies, requested audit logs from the treatment center, and started mapping out a trail of billing codes, invoices, and ghost consultations. Meanwhile, I started talking. To everyone. To the 3 women Tara had tracked down. To Jenna. To a quiet librarian named Elaine who'd nearly gone bankrupt paying for her radiation. To a woman named Nancy who'd lost all her teeth from supposed chemotherapy she wasn't even given. They all had one name in common, Dr. Nathan Collier. Linda pulled together a formal complaint and filed it with the Connecticut State Medical Board. We didn't expect much. Medical boards are notoriously slow, especially when the accused has clean credentials and a decade of glowing reviews. But the more we uncovered, the harder it became to ignore. Especially once we found the payments. It started with a single name in the billing breakdowns, Benedict Health Partners LLC. Not a hospital. Not a lab. A shell company. James traced it to a P.O. box in Hartford and then to a business account connected to, of course, Dr. Collier's wife. A 6-figure payment from the treatment center had been deposited every month for over a year. Labeled as consulting fees. And the most damning part. They all corresponded with the dates of our chemotherapy appointments. "This isn't negligence," Linda told me one night as we spread documents across her dining room table. "This is fraud. RICO-level fraud." I blinked. "RICO? Like, mob stuff?" She nodded. "Organized racketeering. Collier used his medical license to build a billing scam, fake diagnoses, fake specialists, fake treatments. He used your insurance to fund it." I felt cold. "He made over $2 million in the last 18 months, Sarah. Just from patients like you." The insurance companies didn't take long to join the party. Once they saw the duplicate scans, ghost doctors, and falsified codes, their legal departments lit up. Within weeks, 2 major providers had launched internal fraud investigations. The audit logs showed dozens of medical records being edited, always by the same admin user, tied back to the clinic. Even worse. My insurance plan had reimbursed over $312,000 for my treatment. None of it real. And yet, he was still practicing. Still seeing patients. Still walking into exam rooms like nothing had happened. That's when I cracked. I stood outside his clinic one morning, just across the street, and watched him arrive. He got out of his sleek silver Lexus, coffee in hand, tailored coat, sunglasses like he was some celebrity. He didn't look like a man who had stolen months of my life. He looked like a man on top of the world. And I hated him for it. The media got involved next. A local journalist caught wind of the state complaint and started digging. She reached out to me. At first I said no. I didn't want to relive it. I didn't want Emily's classmates knowing. But then I thought of that nurse, the one who tried to warn me. The one who vanished. And I thought of the next woman walking into that clinic, coughing, scared, alone. So I said yes. We met at a coffee shop downtown, and I told her everything. She published the story 3 days later. Local doctor accused of falsifying cancer diagnoses for insurance fraud. The fallout was immediate. Phone calls. Emails. Death threats from strangers who thought I was lying. Messages of support from women who had been through the same thing but never spoke up. The clinic shut down temporarily for renovations. Dr. Collier went on indefinite leave. But the damage was done. The truth was out. 2 weeks later, I got a call from the state's attorney's office. They were opening a criminal investigation. The agent on the phone asked me calmly, "Miss Langley, would you be willing to testify if this goes to trial?" My throat tightened. I looked down at my arm, at the faded bruise from the last fake infusion. The scar that shouldn't be there. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Yes," I said. "I'll testify. Because if I didn't, who would?" Linda filed a civil suit the following week. Class action. Me, Jenna, Elaine, Nancy, and 2 others. We wanted restitution, yes, but more than that, we wanted accountability. A number can't fix what he did to us. But a conviction. That could stop him from doing it again. Emily stayed quiet through most of it. She'd stopped asking questions, stopped watching me cry, stopped hugging me goodnight unless I asked. But one night, after dinner, she stood in the kitchen doorway and said softly, "Did he ever mean it, Mom? Any of it?" I turned to her, heart aching. "I don't know, baby. But I don't think people like him ever mean anything." She nodded once. Then walked away. And I realized, in that moment, that Collier hadn't just hurt me. He'd broken something in her, too. You never really prepare for court. You can try, buy the right blouse, memorize your statement, meet with lawyers a dozen times, but when the doors open and the bailiff calls your name, none of that matters. Your legs still shake. Your mouth still goes dry. Your voice, no matter how strong in rehearsal, still quivers when the truth finally comes out. And mine did. But before I get there, let me tell you how it all began. The state charged Dr. Nathan Collier with 7 counts of insurance fraud, 5 counts of felony medical malpractice, and 2 counts of criminal conspiracy. He was arrested at home. Quietly. No cuffs in public. No mugshot blasted across the evening news. Just a soft little headline in the Hartford Sentinel. Well-known physician accused in cancer treatment scheme. Bail was posted by noon. By dinner, he was out. But the trial was coming. Linda prepped me for weeks. Depositions, pre-trial interviews, character references, cross-examination practice. She was meticulous, unflinching. "This is going to hurt," she warned. "They'll try to paint you as confused, fragile, emotional, anything to make you look unreliable." I nodded. "Let them. I know what happened." The courtroom was beige. Why are courtrooms always beige? There was something soul-draining about it. Everything smelled like old books and recycled air. A guard stood by the door. A dozen people lined the benches. And at the front, him. Dr. Collier. His hair was shorter. He wore a charcoal suit. He didn't look at me. Not once. But I stared at him. I wanted him to feel it, to feel the eyes of every woman he'd mutilated with lies. The prosecution opened strong. Charts. Timelines. Documents. Witnesses. James Hart, our investigator, took the stand first. Calm, direct, surgical in how he laid it all out. Fake specialist names. Duplicated CT scans. Payments funneled to shell companies under his wife's name. The jury listened, wide-eyed, some of them scribbling notes furiously. Then came the former nurse. The one who'd vanished. Her real name was Danielle. She'd moved out of state after quitting the clinic and had to be subpoenaed to return. She sat on the stand, pale and shaking, but firm. "I was told not to question Dr. Collier's records," she said. "Even when they didn't make sense. I once saw a patient scan from 3 months earlier used as updated results. When I asked, I was told to mind my lane." The room was dead silent. Then it was my turn. I walked to the stand slowly. Not because I was nervous, though I was, but because I wanted them to see the weight of what I'd carried. I took the oath. Sat down. Looked at the jury. Not at him. And I began. I was diagnosed with stage 3B lymphoma. I trusted that diagnosis. I trusted my doctor. I followed every order. I went to every chemo session. I took pills that made me vomit for days. I cried while my daughter shaved my head. I paused. I kept a video diary for my child. Because I thought I was dying. A few jurors looked down. One reached for a tissue. My insurance paid over $300,000. I didn't know it at the time. I was too busy trying not to die. And then I looked straight at him, at Collier. You stole my health. My peace. My child's innocence. You didn't just lie, you poisoned my life. The defense attorney stood slowly. She was polished, icy, and deliberate. Ms. Langley, she said, isn't it possible that you misunderstood your diagnosis? That perhaps the records were incomplete due to an error? That you're confusing emotional distress with intent? I stared at her. And I said, calmly, I was never sick. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a lie. Over the next 3 days, the court heard from other victims. Jenna, who went into early menopause from unnecessary hormone blockers. Nancy, who developed permanent nerve damage. Elaine, who nearly lost her home trying to cover co-pays that should never have existed. Each story added weight, layer by layer, until the courtroom could barely breathe. Then came the final blow. The prosecution presented a recorded phone call between Dr. Collier and a clinic administrator. It had been part of the insurance audit. On tape, his voice was cool, smug. They're never going to catch on, he said. They're too scared to ask questions. As long as the scans look scary, they'll keep coming back. The courtroom gasped. Even the judge leaned forward. When it came time for closing arguments, Linda stood tall. Her voice didn't waver once. This case is not just about fraud. It's about abuse. Abuse of trust, of power, of fear. Dr. Collier didn't make a mistake, he made a business model. And my client, along with every woman you've heard from, paid for it with her body and soul. The defense tried their best. Blamed the system. Blamed record-keeping. Blamed confusion during a pandemic. But the damage was done. You could feel it in the room. Everyone knew. The jury deliberated for 7 hours. When they came back, I held Emily's hand so tightly I thought I'd crush it. The foreman stood. On count 1, guilty. On count 2, guilty. On count 3, guilty. 7 counts. 7 guilty verdicts. I exhaled for the first time in months. Dr. Collier didn't flinch. He just sat there. Blank. Like the truth had nothing to do with him. Sentencing was set for 6 weeks later. He was remanded to custody. No bail. As the bailiff led him away, he turned, just for a second. Our eyes met. I didn't see regret. I didn't see fear. All I saw was anger. As if I had ruined his life. After the trial, reporters swarmed outside the courthouse. Flashbulbs. Microphones. Questions. I said only one thing. If someone tells you you're sick, ask for proof. Even when it comes from someone you trust. And then I walked away. Not victorious. But standing. They sentenced him to 11 years. It wasn't enough. He stole more than money. He stole months of my life, years of trust, and a piece of my daughter's childhood I'll never get back. And yet, in the end, he got just over a decade behind bars, eligible for parole in 6. People called it a victory. But it didn't feel like winning. I walked out of the courthouse with a manila folder of paperwork and a body that still ached in places I didn't understand. The phantom nausea. The joint pain. The insomnia. I asked one of the specialists if it was real, even without chemo. He nodded. Trauma leaves traces. Sometimes the brain can simulate physical symptoms. Especially when it believed it was fighting for survival. I wanted to scream. To tear out every fore memory from my veins and throw it at the world. But instead, I just cried. Emily didn't cry. She stayed quiet the day of the sentencing. We stopped for ice cream on the way home, her request. She didn't eat it. Just let it melt on the spoon. And then she said it, so quietly I almost missed it. I don't know if I can ever trust doctors again. I didn't have an answer. Because neither did I. I went back to work 3 months later. The staff at school greeted me like a hero. There were hugs, of flowers, a welcome back banner that made me want to crawl out of my skin. But I smiled. I smiled through every awkward conversation, every "you're so brave" and "thank God it wasn't real," as if that somehow erased what happened. What no one understood is, just because I wasn't dying doesn't mean I didn't suffer. At night, I still checked my scalp in the mirror, half expecting to see hair missing. I kept a bottle of anti-nausea meds in my drawer even though I hadn't needed them in months. And I couldn't bring myself to delete the video diary I made for Emily. The last entry. Day 89. I don't know how much longer I have, I whispered into the camera. But I want you to know I love you. More than anything. I hope you grow up strong, and kind, and free. I haven't watched it since. But I haven't erased it, either. The civil case went to settlement. We each received a payout, enough to cover damages, therapy, and then some. I used part of it to start a foundation. The Langley Project, a non-profit that advocates for patient transparency and medical fraud awareness. We offer free consultations with patient rights attorneys, help people understand their insurance statements, and create safe spaces to ask, "Does this feel right?" It's not justice. But it's something. Dr. Collier appealed, of course. He claimed bias. Claimed media influence. Claimed his patients were emotionally unstable and misunderstood his methods. The judge denied every request. Still, I read every document they filed. Every word. Because some part of me still needed to see the monster up close. To make sure I never forgot what he looked like. The hardest part. Forgiveness. Not for him. I'll never forgive him. But for myself. For not asking sooner. For not fighting harder. For letting someone else write my story in syringes and lye-laced prescriptions. I was a teacher. A mother. A smart woman. And I was fooled. It took months, years, really, before I stopped blaming myself. Now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see a victim anymore. I see a survivor. Last spring, Emily wrote an essay for her college application. She didn't let me read it at first. But one night, she left it on the kitchen table, folded in half. It was titled, "How My Mother Taught Me to Question Everything." In it, she wrote, "Most people think bravery is about charging into danger. But real bravery is asking questions when everyone else says to stay quiet. My mom saved herself, and she saved others too. Not because she wasn't scared, but because she was." I wept. Not because of the pain. But because somehow, through all of it, she still believed in me. Sometimes, I still get emails from strangers. People who read the news story or saw the trial on TV. People who think they might be going through something similar. People who are afraid. I always reply. Not with advice, necessarily, but with the same words I wish someone had said to me. You have the right to ask. Even if it makes people uncomfortable. Especially then. Life didn't go back to normal. But it went forward. And that, I've learned, is enough. Some days, I still feel the tremors. When I walk into a clinic. When I hear the beep of a heart monitor. When I see an ad for cancer treatment and my stomach twists. But then I remember who I am now. I'm the woman who pulled her life out of a lie. And told the world the truth. Final line, camera slowly fades out. I never had cancer. But I survived something much darker. And I'm still here.